What's up, guys? My name's Isaiah, and I am this year's UTA AIS president. Going into the fall 2020 semester, we knew that we were going to need to rethink the way that we do all of our programming to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our team decided to pivot our efforts by transitioning all of our events from in person to a virtual platform. One of our most successful events of the semester was our panel discussion series. This series, for many years, has been a collaboration between our chapter and our local AIA Fort Worth chapter, where we discuss various topics that relate to the profession of architecture. So, I'd like to say thank you, AIA Fort Worth, for all of your many years of avid support for our students. That now brings us to the topic of today's discussion, which is getting a job, portfolio, and interview. We hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, can everyone hear me? Are we good? All right, great. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. My name is Isaiah Sigala. I'm the president of our UT Arlington AIS chapter. And this evening, we're going to be having the final fall panel discussion this semester titled Getting a Job, Portfolio and Interview. And part of the reason why we decided to have this topic this time of the semester is that we know that there's quite a few students, whether who still have a little bit time in school or will soon be graduating, who are interested in learning what it's going to take to get an internship or a full-time position, not only just inherently within the profession, but also during this crazy COVID pandemic year and what all of that, or what effects that has on the prospective job market. So we chose this time of year because typically, or traditionally here at UTA, we have our CAPPA Career Fair in the spring, and the plan is to continue to do that, although it may take a virtual format this year. But certainly, the end of the fall semester is the best time to finish up portfolios, start portfolios if you haven't already, and begin to prepare yourselves and all of your material to begin to search for potential internships or full-time positions. And with that, we decided it'd be great to invite some professionals here in DFW from various positions within their respective firms, but all touching the hiring process in some manner. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our moderator this evening, Victoria Hernandez. She's our graduate liaison and AXP advisor, but she's also dubbing as our panel discussion coordinator, and she also moderates our discussions. So Victoria, take it away and introduce our guests.
Hi, thank you. So we have three lovely guests this evening for this panel discussion. First, I would like to introduce Justin Hiles. With 18 years of architectural experience and an extensive background in educational and commercial design, Justin serves as the Chief Operations Officer at VLK Architects. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Architecture degree and a Master's of Architecture degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. He is a member of the American Institute of Architects and currently serves as president of AIA Fort Worth. He previously held the roles of treasurer and chair of the golf committee for AIA Fort Worth. He has also earned certifications through the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, is a lead accredited professional, and is a member of the Association for Learning Environments, A4LE, and the Texas Society of Architects. Thank you, Justin, for being with us. And next we have Anthony Gallion. Born and raised in Texas, he received his Bachelor of Architecture from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. He joined GHP Architects Design 7 years ago and was promoted to associate at the firm last year, bridging the creative design and the practical construction on projects ranging from the multifamily, mixed use, and commercial remodels. Thank you, Anthony, for being with us. And lastly, we have Samantha Markham. Samantha received her bachelor's and master's in architecture from Louisiana Tech University. After graduation, she joined the Stantec office in Plano in June of 2014. She is an associate and project architect working on primarily K-12 education projects for multiple school districts across the DFW community. Currently, she is working on a project management and construction administration side of projects, including a junior high school in Arlington. In summer of 2020, she helped lead Stantec's first North American virtual summer internship program, connecting the summer interns from across 13 cities and 4 different disciplines. Sam is highly involved outside of the office, is probably mentorship and supporting the next generation of architects. Currently, she helps lead the ACE mentor program for Plano and Frisco, serves as the TXA director for the AIA Dallas chapter, and is the TXA Education Outreach Committee Chair. She has been a mentor at the UTA's Camp Mentorship Program, and she has previously served as the AIA Dallas Director of Education, Women in Architecture Chair, and Architecture Matters Chair, and was in the ELP class of 2014. She also has her vlog, Aspiring Architect, where she hopes to bridge the gaps between schooling and career. In 2016, she was honored with the AIA Dallas Young Architect of the Year and was selected as one of the 5 national ACE Mentors of the Year in 2019. So I want to thank all of our panelists for being with us tonight, and we'll get started off. So this panel is called Resume and Interview, so that's a lot to cover. So we're doing it in different kind of brackets and sections. So the first section the first category is the current job market. So I want to ask this question. It's a 2-part question. So how would you describe the current job market during this pandemic? And how does your firm recruit new employees during these times? So Justin, if you would like to start us off this panel discussion.
Sure. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. I'm glad that you're doing this, and thank you AIAS for hosting us and asking us to be panelists. Current job market. So COVID obviously has had a major impact on how we practice architecture, but also like what types of projects we're doing. I would say for the most part, we have not seen a big slowdown in public and commercial and private work, but it has changed. There's a lot of private work that got delayed in March that is kicking off again, and we're anticipating public projects to suffer a little bit in 2021 just because of tax revenue decreases that are going to affect budgets in the future, but current budgets had already been passed and money's there to provide for projects right now. We are at BLK. We've had a real small layoff earlier this summer, but for the most part, look strong into 2021 and beyond. I would say that Texas is very isolated and that we continue to grow. The housing markets we're watching have not changed at all. In fact, it actually has increased the number of people that are moving here. So graduating in Texas or looking for a job in Texas in the next couple of years looks very promising. As far as how it's affected how we recruit, obviously we've gone to a lot more virtual platforms. We do a lot more virtual interviews. We still host a couple in-person interviews when possible. But other than that, there's not really been a whole lot of change other than just moving to a more virtual platform.
Thank you. That's interesting that you said that it kind of didn't, like, it slowed down. On our last panel, they said that as well, like it's kind of keeping up. So it's interesting that you say that. So we have Anthony, if you would like to share.
Yeah, no, just to sort of build on top of that, one of the things at least we have started to notice with some of our projects that are mixed use, we do apartments and retail, but also office commercial space. A couple of our projects had to completely redesign that office portion of the project, and they decided to go and infill it with residential. So we're starting to see, at least from our point of view at our firm, that some of the office commercial space projects are starting to pull back, especially since now, because of COVID, everyone is starting to work from home. We're sort of seeing that transition and that shift. Similarly, we're not slowing down. We had a little bit of a slowdown at the beginning because a handful of clients were wanting to be somewhat cautious. They didn't know if the sort of quarantine that was going on was going to last more than a month, if it was going to extend all throughout the year. So we had a couple of projects that were put on hold, and now we're actually at 100% back to work. JHP has not had any layoffs. We did have to let go of a couple of people, but that was just standard practice on performance, and we have started hiring as well. I think during this time we have hired 5 people and have had a very interesting onboarding experience on that. Half of it being virtual, but of course we did not start hiring people until we were ready. The office was ready and safe to come back. And we have taken precautions in our HVAC system and also other, recommendations that the CDC is making for people to feel comfortable coming back to the office. And we tried to explain that as well during our interviews, which those have been primarily virtual and online. We're again wanting to take every step to make everyone safe and comfortable. And then of course we go through the process and then send them a hire letter. So it's been a transition, to say the least.
Yeah, I completely understand. And when you said about that project that they changed their layout, that's kind of interesting to hear that they put in, they took away those office spaces, everyone's working at home. So do you think that that's mostly what's going to happen like later on, that with projects that are coming out, there may not be any mixed use with office and residential. It may just be residential and restaurants and stuff beside it?
We've actually started seeing clients ask us to start redesigning our units, our apartments that are typical template, to integrate some form of a home office and start providing more. Instead of 2 bedrooms, make a 1 bedroom with a den and office off to the side. So we're starting to see that transition. And then as for the mixed use, originally a couple of our other projects that were supposed to have small office spaces and other mixed use, we're now seeing restaurants becoming the more prominent, because that's the one that can stay open and have people outside on a patio. So we're starting to see that transition, and even more clients are starting to look at what other features do they need to take into account for the apartment complex, the amenities, how can we make bigger spaces to provide more space between people and social distance, and then also even looking at their HVAC systems.
Okay, well, thank you. Samantha, I'd like to hear from you.
Sure. So as both Justin and Anthony have mentioned, I think kind of the current job market is very sector specific, and how kind of, I think COVID has affected everyone. Being in educational work, like Justin mentioned, public schools and public work, all of the bonds that had passed previously have thankfully been able to hold us steady and have kept us busy on work. And so we're always very watchful now of, we're grateful that so many bonds passed in November, and we're watching the May bond election and hopeful that all of those passed as well, because that, again, for education, that's a large majority of our work. It has, I will say, in other areas and other sectors, it has slowed down. But in others, it's been just fine. My husband actually works with Anthony at JHP, and I know that he has been just as busy now as he was kind of pre-COVID. And they do multifamily and senior living facilities. So again, I think it is very sector specific. I know here we did have a very, very small round recently of layoffs, but we feel like now we are very strong for the future, and hopefully that was the one and only round that has to happen. So we think now we're in a good, safe spot, and we're hoping, in 2021, things turn around again for us. Watching the bonds is always critical. We're very hopeful that, you know, by spring of next year, we're kind of picking things back up. And once they do, it'll pick up quickly. So that's always a good thing. As far as how the hiring process have gone, we have had a few new people, both architects and engineers, start at our office during COVID. And it has been a mix of in-person and virtual. A lot of the interviews have happened virtually. Our summer interns, a lot of that happened virtually. But we did, if everyone felt comfortable, we would try to get those people in the office with just, you know, a very, very small group, so they could at least see what the office looked like, even though no one was really working here. It's kind of an odd thing to show someone around an empty office because they don't really get to see your office culture and experience it, you know, like a normal first day. So that is kind of a downside. But it's great to still be face to face with them for a little while, get them acclimated and situated, introduce them to at least a few people in person before helping them get, you know, set up to work from home if needed. So it's definitely been a combination. We're still doing a combination. I'm actually in our office right now, so most people are just coming in maybe one day a week, but we do still have a large group that are just still primarily working from home. So we're trying to keep it very flexible and open to everyone's personal situation and kind of, you know, what's easy and best for their families. So I do think a lot of things will continue to happen virtually for a while.
Yeah, thank you. I think what y'all all have said that getting a job in architecture should be, you know, very promising, that there will still be projects happening and everyone's so busy. So I think for everyone who's listening to this, who's about to graduate and stuff, it kind of gives some relief and hope, because we're kind of like, what's going to happen or how can we find jobs? So thank y'all so much for answering that. So our next subject is resume. So how do you go about looking at resumes? What stands out the most in a resume? So I will start with Anthony.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. When this came up, this whole discussion panel, I just got done doing a handful of interviews with potential hires. So it's fresh on the mind. And, you know, when it comes to the resumes, a couple of things. Sorry, I think we had to pause so that we could mute some of the background music. One of the most interesting things is, you know, you have your standard template with your resume and it does give us the information, but the resume is about you. And you also need to make it a little unique as you are. So one of the things that always pops out to me first is a unique format or a different template. An example of that is I actually received a black and white resume, but it was on black paper with white text. Very simple thing like that makes it stand out. You don't want to go too crazy with color. You don't want to be Elle Woods with pink and purple lettering that's hard to read. But something that makes it unique. One of the other things that I have seen recently, and I guess is the new trend to do, and I actually like it a lot, is I call them the power bars. Whenever you have a skill set with a certain program or a suite or something like that, like Adobe or SketchUp, and you rate yourself out of 5 stars, how proficient or good you're at it. I actually like seeing that because one, you're telling me you're taking in some assessment of your skills, and that already tells me, okay, this person obviously knows a lot or they don't. We can start training them on this. That helps. And then I think one of the other big takeaways I've been noticing lately is allocates and awards that you receive. Again, that's something that's really unique to you and that helps make you stand out. And then don't be afraid to put something a little personal in it, your skills and your interests. Put at the end that you like walking your 2 dogs and you like working on your motorcycle. It tells me that one, you're active, you have responsibility, and that you like to be, you know, mechanically inclined just equally as you are creative. So it gives us a little bit of insight of you, not only what you would be in the office, but also outside the office.
Yeah, I agree. So making it more personal and not just solely about architecture, that you're a human as well. So it's really good. Justin, can we hear from you?
Yeah, Anthony explained it very well. I mean, I think of resumes as you on a piece of paper, and what would you want somebody to know about you without ever having met you is kind of what I envision. And if in my mind, if you're just pulling up Word and you started a bulleted list, is that the way you want to communicate what I can offer to an architecture firm or to any place you're applying? And so I look for, like Anthony said, kind of unique things in there, but not necessarily just how it looks or what the design of it is. Obviously, we're in a design profession, so the more you can kind of lay it out and not just pick, oh, this is the first template that comes up on the search in Word. Well, okay, so now I've seen that resume template 6 times, so now you're not kind of that unique person. And there's usually a lot of that you can tell whether the person's a little more geared towards a designer or more towards the technical side just by the layout of their resume. And that's good information to see. So I may be looking for somebody that may have a more technical aptitude versus a designer aptitude. I do, like Anthony mentioned, the personal interest. I mean, that really helps where it can spur some interview questions potentially. It also can start to frame like what team might this person fit in with based on their interests. And then some things, pet peeves of mine, I'm sure of most people that hire, is spell check, grammar check, then spell check again, and then read it and make sure spell check didn't miss something that you spelled wrong. So a lot of times if I get to 3, if I'm reading through a resume and find the 3rd misspelled word, it kind of moves into the trash. So again, it's you on paper. That is the one thing that kind of sells you to get you to that next step of looking at a portfolio, scheduling an interview, things like that. So if that's how you want to represent yourself, that's how you need to think about when you're putting together a resume.
Yeah, the mentioning of doing self due diligence and checking your work, it kind of tells anybody, are you going to check your work when you work with us? When you work with me, are you going to check what you just put in the drawing is correct or not? I mean, architects are not spellers. I will be the first one to admit that. But you can at least do your due diligence, especially when it's, as Justin was putting it, it's you. This is the first thing we're going to see about you.
Yeah, so making it unique, spell check, and also right now it's also you want to put yourself on paper, especially during these times. You can't like kind of meet in person, so showing yourself through these resumes is one of those key things. Samantha, do you have anything to add to that?
They both carried a lot of what I would say as well. So I totally agree with everything they said, and especially the spell check and checking your contact information. I have had an email be wrong before on a resume, and I'm like, well, there they go. If I can't contact them through email, then it kind of defeats the purpose. So I know that sounds silly, but it does happen. And again, I totally agree with them. Make it unique however you can. I just kind of get disappointed when I can very clearly tell they just opened up Word and just started filling in the blanks, because I'm like, you're an architecture school. The idea is to be creative. And like Justin was saying, it doesn't mean you have to necessarily be a designer and make it crazy. It can still just look very nice, simple, and clean without just using what Word gave you to start with. So totally agree with all of those things. Also, I love simple, very clean, and easy to read, because we do end up with a lot of these, especially when we come back from career fairs. So a lot of the times we are just scanning through, and if it's like very unorganized or jumbled or not kind of an an easy format to follow, a lot of the times it'll just get passed over. A couple of other things is put your graduation or expected graduation date on there. I know especially when we're trying to distinguish resumes between who's looking for summer internship versus the full-time job, that gets really hard and takes a lot of our time if we can't just easily put you in one pile or the other. So even if you are, in between undergrad and grad school and you're about to graduate, but you plan to go to grad school in the fall, even if you don't know where you're going, just somehow put on there that you will be starting grad school in the fall so that we understand you're looking for a summer internship and not something full-time. So whatever way you can do that, it'll help us tremendously and save us time and keep you in the pile. And then other things like activities, I love seeing your involvement because that can tell us that you're able to manage multiple things. We know how hard architecture school is, but if you can do other things on top of architecture school, then that means you can manage your time and manage your work. And that is super important for us to be able to see on a resume and then to ask you questions about once we have you in an interview. So I love seeing involvement in AIAS, Freedom by Design, USGBC, any other, even if it's a sorority or fraternity, anything like that, that we can see that, again, it shows that you manage your time very well. And even work experiences. I know I've appreciated just a very quick, like one bullet point or one single line sentence that maybe explains what you were responsible for or what you were doing at a previous job. Even if it wasn't for an architecture firm or something that you think is related, you may still have learned a very valuable skill set from that job that we would appreciate as potential employers. I know someone previously that we interviewed and ended up hiring us for an intern, he had worked at Home Depot for one summer, and we had seen that on his resume, and we were able to ask him about it in the interview. And man, he sold that Home Depot job, and he made it sound like it was like the best job ever, and he learned so much from it, and he gained so much experience, and it helped him with management skills and leadership skills. And we were like, well, dang, if you can learn that at Home Depot, then let's see what you can learn from us, So you never know like what experience or activity can kind of link you to a further conversation in an interview. So it kind of, again, it goes back to sharing a little bit more about you and your skill set. So those are some of the things that we look for.
Yes, thank you all for answering that question, y'all. I hope everyone who's listening is taking down notes. And also what Samantha said, get involved. So get involved in AIAS. So we will go on to the next part, which is portfolio. So what are the key things you look for in a portfolio? Should work be curated to the firm you're applying to? So we'll start off with Justin.
Sure. So I guess the typical things I look for in a portfolio are can somebody tell a story with their project? Our job as architects typically is communicating to somebody else what their building is going to look like or how to construct the building. And we're doing that with a drawing and specification and things like that. And so with portfolio, sometimes you are there to explain it, but a lot of times it's got to stand on its own. You got to utilize your drawing skills, your written skills, graphic skills to communicate the story of what the project, why you're doing the project, how you solve the problem, and kind of explaining your solution. So I don't like ones that are basically like 3 or 4 pages of words and then 2 or 3 real small pictures. I also don't like ones that are just all pictures and then all it is kind of pretty pictures and I don't even know what the problem is. So it's the good hybrid of a quick 5 to 8 sentence paragraph that kind of explains the problem. Here's how I solved it, and then here's the drawings that show either the process of how I got there or just the finished solution. I like a variety of things. I would prefer not to just see a bunch of renderings because that kind of doesn't show that you have the skill set of doing maybe some hand drawing and some maybe wall sections and some plans and some renderings. And I typically don't think that work needs, or your portfolio needs to be curated for a particular firm or a job you're looking for. I think your portfolio should express the work you've done. And again, just like your resume, it should express you on paper. I think if you go to an interview with a portfolio, that is when you try to curate and maybe spend more time on a specific project that is related to the firm you're working for. But you don't necessarily need to recreate your portfolio each time for that firm. And I would say this is a lesson, my own personal lesson learned from when I was in school. At the end of every semester, develop your portfolio pages for your project. So you're not doing it at the end when you're about to graduate and apply for a job and you have to go back for 6 studios and remember, man, how did I solve this one? And so even if you don't have the format right, at least collect your pictures of your plans, your drawings, your renderings, write your little story, and just have that ready. So when you do put your portfolio together, you can put that together.
Thank you. That's actually a good point. So you want to show the process of how you got to the end, not just show the end with the renderings.
Right.
So Samantha, can we hear from you with the things to look for in a portfolio?
Yep, very, very similar to what Justin was saying is he's exactly right. You have to think of your portfolio as being able to tell your project without you being able to explain it. That was one of the best things one of my professors ever told me during architecture school was we were putting together our final presentation boards for the semester. And he said, pretend you already have your board up and someone new were to walk up and look at it. Could they understand your project with no one else in the room? And that's a great way to think about your portfolio as well. And like he was saying, that doesn't mean put text on every single line or page. It just means that you need to really think through your project and your process for your project because it tells the story of it. And so we love being able to see kind of your initial design sketches and even those little study models that you may start with at the beginning. We love seeing those scanned in or pictures included, and then how that went all the way through kind of development into the final finished drawings and the pretty pictures and the renderings at the end of it. We want to see that stuff in between so that we can start to understand your thought process and how you got there. And also that becomes key in your interview because we'll want to hear you explain it in the interview because storytelling is a lot of what we do as architects. And so that's key not only for your portfolio to be able to do it, because that's what we do for interviews. We have to send them a proposal. And so that's very similar to a portfolio. So you have to be able to kind of sell yourself before you're ever in the room. So that's kind of always good things to keep in mind when you're putting it together. I'm also a fan of, again, clean and simple. Like I mentioned for the resume, white space can be your friend. That took me a long time to learn when I started putting mine together because I thought every page needed to be filled. And then I very quickly hated how it was looking. And so it's okay to self-edit things. Again, white space can be your friend. Not every page has to be packed full. And show it to some of your studio mates and even take it to your professors. Our professors had amazing feedback on our portfolios. So if you have professors that are willing, definitely take advantage of that or send it to any local professionals like us, where I'm always willing to, give a quick glance at a portfolio to give feedback. I love also seeing if you have any other kind of hobbies or activities or elective classes that you've taken. I know you guys in particular at UTA, I have seen some amazing watercolor drawings before, Prismacolors, charcoal sketches. I think, I'm trying to remember, I've just been very impressed by all of the hand drawing and sketch work and paintings I've seen coming from your school. I love seeing those in portfolios because it's still very important in our field to be able to do those for clients. Sometimes the computer doesn't quite replace everything just yet. And even I know some electives could be like ceramics or pottery, things like that. Again, it just shows that you have other skills, that you enjoy other things, and you never know kind of what connection that may help make you in an interview. And again, spell check everything, especially on the portfolio and on both, really. It's key because that resume will get you to the portfolio, but I don't think we can like enunciate enough, like spell check everything. So I think those are my big things usually.
Thank you for all that. And what's interesting is that I think we all heard that too, like white space, is key. And also your drawings should be able to speak for themselves. So I think we've heard that a lot at UTA. Thank you, Samantha. Anthony, do you have anything to add on to that?
I think Justin and Samantha really nailed it on the head. And, again, it goes back to what makes you. You're now going from one page of words to images and representation of who you are. And as Samantha was talking about, self-edit. What are you really trying to say? What is the most important thing that would actually tell the entire story? And then, of course, the diversity. Show sketches, show your sketch design build of it all, and even a couple of renders. Show that you have that diversity of skills that you can bring to the firm. And yeah, don't be afraid of showing your personal side, whether it be photography that you've done, painting, other artwork, or however, or whatever you have. I mean, personally in my portfolio, I had images of my clay model of New York City that I did in high school. And I've always had that in my portfolio just because it was a prized possession of mine. So, always find the thing that's going to make you stand out in a good way, because what's going to make you stand out in a bad way is using the wrong word when you don't spell check, or because romp is still a word instead of ramp. So I'm just saying, putting that out there, but always spell check and do a grammar check. Read it out loud to yourself and make sure it makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you all for answering that. That's really good key points for everyone to keep in mind about how to go about your portfolio. So thank you. So we're at the second to last question. So we are going to go into the interview portion. So what makes a candidate stand out during an interview? And what are the things not to say in an interview? So I will start off with Samantha first.
Sure. So the easy one I'll start with is to always come over prepared and overdressed. That's just safe, I think, even though your firm may end up being very casual, especially if you interview on a Friday. Like I know we are typically very casual on a normal basis on Fridays. But again, it's always just better to be overdressed and over prepared. You never know how many people may sit in that interview. So always come with multiple resumes if you can. I know portfolios are expensive to print, so we never expect you to have 3 or 4 portfolios, but at least have one hard copy if possible, and then send them a link maybe to your online or digital copy ahead of time so that they can have access to that. So again, it's just prepare for the unknown of just not knowing how many may sit in your interview. Other things is just try to be personable, and again, really kind of sharing you to your audience. Again, you may never know what questions they ask or what connections you might be able to make with them that they will remember you for. I know in one interview I was in Sigma Kappa sorority, and so was someone else in the interview, so that stuck out to them. I know I talked about car racing in another interview, and of course all the guys immediately picked up on that, and we had a great conversation about cars. So you just really never know kind of what personal hobby or interest or passion of yours might connect you with someone in that interview and help you stand out compared to others. And it's also just really good because it kind of breaks the ice a little bit and can, be good conversation starters and kind of make it a little bit more relaxed in the conversation. I know that my very first interviews when I was looking for my first internship, I was very, very nervous, and you could hear the nervousness in my voice. And even though I had tried to calm myself down and I did everything people told me to do to calm down, you could still hear the shakiness in my voice. So I started, this sounds silly, but I started practicing. I would put myself in situations on a regular basis that would make me speak in front of crowds or in front of people. And eventually you just get over it and you start to just kind of get used to the situation and you become more comfortable and a lot less nervous. An example of what I did was I would get up and speak in front of all of my sorority sisters, which was 80 girls. And I felt like if you can speak in front of 80 teenage college age girls, you'll probably be okay in the future. So again, whatever scenario you can find just to get yourself more comfortable, I highly suggest doing it before you go into an interview. Ask questions. That's always a big thing for us too, is I always get so sad at the end when we, kind of give time for some Q&A back and forth. And then the student doesn't ask any questions, because it can be taken as maybe you're just not that interested, or you're already kind of set on maybe going somewhere else. And even if that's the case, that's fine. We understand that that always happens, but it's a bridge you might want to keep for the future. So you always want to keep good relationships, even if you end up not going to that firm. So have questions prepared. It could be maybe the same questions you would ask at all the firms. That's fine. But even if you can do a little digging and find some kind of unique things about the firm you're going to, or the sector they're working in, or a specific local project, any questions that are kind of hone in on that shows us that you did some research and that you're interested. And again, that you kind of know your stuff. And so for us, that's very exciting. And it kind of, again, sets you apart from others that may not have asked any questions, or just kind of asked the standard 2 or 3 questions that we usually get. So that's kind of some of my big pointers.
Thank you. That's interesting that you say that, to ask the firm questions back, but I think that's really important too. So it does start a conversation, and it kind of breaks the ice as well. So thank you. Justin, we could hear from you.
Yeah, Samantha covered it very well. For me, I would say be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. I've had candidates come in that are walking through their portfolio, and they stumble and don't even know about one of their projects they've got in their portfolio. And it may be that that was 5 years ago, so they don't remember it or something like that. But so it's important to be prepared. I would recommend, try not to be nervous. I know that's difficult to say and hard to do, or easy to say and hard to do. But you are talking to other people, just like you're talking to other colleagues, and sometimes they're just as nervous as you are. Come be early. That's another pet peeve of mine, just like spelling, is somebody shows up late, and that kind of reflects on what I can expect of them coming to work. Are they going to be on time when they come to work? Well, if they can't even come on time to the interview, then I'm probably not going to expect that when they start working here. And then just like Samantha said, I enjoy people that are very interested in knowing what firm they're going to be working for. This is not going to work at McDonald's or something like that. It's hopefully what you've gone to school for 6 years to be your career for the next 40 years. So I'm assuming that you want to go somewhere that aligns with what your passion is, with who you want to work for, the culture you want to work for. So asking questions to kind of gauge what those things are, and helping to align what your vision for your career is with the company that you want to work for. And like Samantha said, I think things that I don't like are, or I guess things I shouldn't say. I usually don't like it when people say, well, I've already got an offer at this company, or I've interviewed at these 6 other companies. It's not necessarily a turnoff, but architecture is a very, very small world. Everybody knows everybody else. And a lot of that has to do with, we went to school together, or we are on AIA committees together, or we just see each other walking in and out of a client interview, or things like that. And so you may want to work 100%. You've sold yourself that, man, coming out of the interview, I did great. I really like what I heard, and I want to work there. And then they don't choose you. They choose somebody else. Well, I've had that happen in the flip, that I didn't pick somebody. Coming out of job fairs, we were able to hire 2 people out of 6 job fairs. And this one person we interviewed that was kind of in our top 10 or so. And it was somebody that we did not end up making an offer to, that about 3 years down the road, they kind of just reached out again, just seeing if there was anything open. So we interviewed them again and hired them at that point. And it was just something that I remembered them from that time, that they were very passionate, and it was somebody I wanted to take a chance on. And they've turned out very well. So again, it may not, don't be discouraged coming out of interviews if you don't get a job. If you don't get the right fit, sometimes it's meant to be that you're meant to go to somewhere else and get an experience, or when you do land that right job, it's that much better. So
Thank you, Justin, for that. So be prepared, be early, and don't give up. So we will have Anthony. You have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think Samantha and Justin really covered most of the parts. The only things I definitely would add to that is do your opposition research. They kind of touched on that, but one of the questions I always ask during interviews is, so what do you know about JHP? And I will wait to see if they've actually done their research and ask them, so was there a project that we've done that really stuck out, that really got you interested? Like, what brought you to us? What made you want to come and interview with us? And then, of course, we give them everything that they don't know, everything that's part of our culture and our community, because we want them to know how fun and great it is working here. Always come with questions. Always try to think of, all right, if I'm gonna work here, what is really the hours? Are we thinking of the 60-hour work week that is somewhat normal? Are we thinking of midterm times? And also know your worth. I know y'all are coming into this out of school, but one of the questions that seems to always stump people, and it even stumped me when I first got out of school, was, all right, well, what do you think your salary should be? Do you have a ballpark? Go online, go to LinkedIn, go to Glassdoor, go to whatever resource you want to use, and look what the job market is currently showing for someone right out of school with zero experience, or however much experience you have, and let that be your baseline. Now, I'm not telling you to sell yourself short and not to go completely crazy, because that will be also a huge turnoff. Somebody that thinks they should be 50% higher than what their salary really should be without any experience to back it up is just going to be a no. But other things that you might want to consider, COVID, yay, we have a vaccine, but we may still be doing virtual interviews. So if you are doing your virtual interviews, one, confirm and make sure who you're going to interview and read up on them. You may not realize that you're actually talking to the president of the company. The other thing is, if you're doing a webcam, make sure your background is appropriate. Don't have dirty laundry in the background. I have had that happen, and it was kind of funny. And then another one had a person come in the background, and yeah, they just got out of the shower. Luckily, they had a towel on, but all the COVID stories. So be a little bit smart, still dress up, don't be in your pajamas, still act like you're coming to an interview, and yeah, have fun with it, no matter what. You're here to present yourself, be serious, but also you got to show them that you're also human.
Thank you, Anthony. I think the thing that stood out was know your worth. I think as whenever we're in this field and then we go into the job market and try to figure out what we should get paid and stuff, it's kind of scary. We don't really know. So thank you for saying that. So we're at our last question. I know it's 6:53, but I hope everyone can still stay for this one and for the questions that are asked in the chat. So the last question is, what advice would you give to the students entering the workforce? And I will have Samantha, sorry.
So as far as entering the workforce and kind of starting your look for internships and jobs, I'll just say constantly reach out and try to make those connections. Don't just fill out the application link on the website. I know a lot of us, especially bigger, larger firms like us and HKS and a lot of the others, we have online kind of job listings that will ask you to fill out. Definitely do that because we'll always ask you to do that anyway. It's just something we have to have. But find a person, or if you know a person, email them and follow up with them. Send them your email, your resume and your portfolio personally, or a link to it. Tell them how, you know, excited you would be for an opportunity to talk with them further. And even pick up the phone. I made a lot of cold calls when I first started looking for an internship in Dallas because I was based in Louisiana. And I made a list of, I think, my top 10 firms that I wanted interviews with. And I just started finding names on their websites and picking up the phone and calling, which was not fun. I hated doing it, but it was totally worth it because just based on those phone calls, I ended up getting connected and getting 3 interviews. And it was just by speaking with someone on the phone and following up with an email. So I know that sounds crazy and it's not kind of the normal way to do things, but it's making that personal connection that kind of got it to the next step. And again, kind of on making connections or having connections, don't be afraid to use connections if you have them. If you have alumni somewhere or professional connections, use them. I don't know why in my head when I was in school, I was like, I want to do this all on my own and I don't want any help. That was so stupid. Use the connections if you have them. There is no harm in asking alumni if there's job openings or if they can connect you to someone else or just to pass along your resume. There's no harm in that. Getting a job is getting a job at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. And if you aren't that well connected or don't know anyone, then get involved. Even after you graduate, if you still haven't found a job yet, go to AIA Fort Worth, go to AIA Dallas, whatever is close to you, and start joining committees or going to events. That is a great way to start meeting professionals in your area at lots of different firms, and maybe even impressing them along the way by getting involved with the committee. And then once you have the job, don't be afraid to speak up and ask lots of questions. There really is no dumb questions. I still feel like I ask dumb questions every single day, but it's just part of the game. You will always be learning in architecture. That's just the nature of the beast. So don't be afraid to ask questions and to speak up if you want opportunities or you want to try something new. Sometimes you have to raise your hand and ask. There, especially in, again, mid-sized to larger firms, there's just a lot of people and it's impossible to be able for any leader to keep up with everyone. So don't just assume something's going to land in your lap. If you want to do something, ask for that opportunity. And then if you get it, make sure you follow through with it. That is your chance to impress everyone and to earn respect. So if you ask for it, back it up and follow through with it, and show them that there was a reason you asked for it, and then you'll get another opportunity after that.
Thank you. So I would say, like, be persistent.
Yes, and especially after like career fairs and college fairs and things like that, I love it when we get follow-up emails after we spoke with you at a career fair, because again, that's just another touch point that I'll remember you that much more than someone else that just handed me a resume and left it at that.
Thank you, Samantha. Justin, do you have anything to add to that? What advice for students entering the workforce?
Yeah, I think everything Samantha said is great. I agree. I mean, you're, I guess, trying to get a job, don't, like I said before, don't be discouraged if you don't land something, or if somebody says we're not hiring right now, still just be persistent as you're doing that. Once you land the job, I would say come in as a sponge, be open and receptive and want to learn. And those are, to me, those are the people that succeed, are the people that don't have expectations or I guess thoughts of kind of, I know this, I don't need to ask questions, or I know what I'm doing and don't need to take criticism or take, somebody tells me to do something different and I'm too good for that.
Wouldn't do that, but like, I'm so sorry. Repeat that.
So learn from every opportunity that you're given and try to apply it and critically think about how to apply it. Architecture is very hard. No matter, I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years and I still learn 2 or 3 things every day at least. And it's impossible to know everything, and everything changes every day. There's new technologies coming out. The code changes every 3 years. So you're constantly learning. So whatever you're doing in school right now, try to apply that, because you'll be doing research. You'll be doing a lot of things that are more than just going in, sitting behind the computer, drawing in Revit, and going home. And try to seek out opportunities. If that is what you're doing for like a week and you're like, I thought I was going to get more than this, speak up. Don't just sit there and accept it. You're in charge of your own career. And that doesn't mean that, well, these people don't, this firm that I've joined doesn't acknowledge what I can bring to them because I'm just sitting here drawing in Revit every day. Well, that doesn't mean that you need to go look for another job. It just means you need to say, hey, is this right? And lastly, I would say be patient. Again, it takes a long time to become expert in anything, especially in architecture. And there's projects, there are some firms that do projects that the design phase is a couple months and construction takes 3 or 4 months. There's I've worked on a project that we started design and had the ribbon cut. It's just that big of a project, and it takes patience to see it all the way through to the end. And it takes experience. It takes patience to get through all your AXP hours. It's a long process, but if you're a sponge and accept that you're going to continue to learn and then start to apply that, is the best advice I can get.
Thank you, Justin, for that. So I'm always learning, especially in this field. Anthony, could you give us some advice for students that are entering the workforce?
Yeah, I think Samantha and Justin, again, laid it all out there. One of the things is keep an open mind. You don't want to narrow to one type of program or project that you're going to do. I first started out doing McDonald's, coincidentally, as it was mentioned earlier. I was doing Mickey D remodels and Walmart remodels as well. We just were getting out of the recession, and that was the only job that was available for someone that knew CAD and wanted to go into architecture. And I wanted to keep my skills in AutoCAD and in Photoshop. You don't know how many renderings of Walmarts I've done before. So obviously keep an open mind. And I think this is something that Samantha was touching on, look at the connections, go on LinkedIn, see who's gone to UTA. We have majority of the people we hire at our firm is through school connections. And a good chunk of that is from UTA. The other chunk and majority of the office is from Louisiana, from all the different schools there. We got our crawfish boil. So it's always those connections that you can find. And that's part of your, after you have an interview, do follow up. It's not like dating. You're allowed to send them an email the next day or a few hours after the interview, just say, hey, great, it was wonderful speaking to you and you about this. Really looking forward to hear from you. Having that shows an interest. And then, of course, when you get into the job, like Justin was saying, be a sponge. Be willing to learn. Having that initiative to learn something that you may or may not know is great, and it's super vital. But you also have to speak up if something is not working. As much as I love to think I can read minds, I don't. So unless you speak up and tell me, hey, this ain't working for me, or hey, I really am interested in trying this or maybe a different direction, and I love all the opportunities. I was wondering if maybe I can try this instead. At our office, we got urban planning, we got senior living, we got multifamily, we got multiple avenues that people can work on to try to find their fit. And that's what we want to help you do, is find what do you need to learn? What are you interested in? And what helps us become a better firm, more efficient, and create the best product that we can for a client? That's going to come from feedback from you to find out where to best put you.
Thank you all. I think that's really great that y'all all basically said that it's our profession, it's our job that we want to do. So we should be able to ask questions and also reach out and say, hey, I want to try to do this. I want to try to learn this, because we do want to keep learning. So I think that's really great that y'all all said that. So that was our last question. So we will go into the Q&A. I know we have some in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Victoria, for doing a wonderful job moderating. And just, I don't know if everybody could see this, but once 7 o'clock hit, the participants blew up. We're at like 3 times as many people as we had at the beginning. So I was like frantically trying to add people in. So Victoria, if that continues, you're in for a treat. But for those of you who joined us a little bit later, no worries. After tonight's event, we have recorded it. We will be publishing it on our AIAS YouTube channel. So if you missed out, don't worry. But basically right now we're at the Q&A portion of the event tonight. We have a couple already in the chat, which is great. But for those of you who maybe came in a little bit late and you have a burning question in the back of your mind, feel free to add it here. If it hasn't been touched on yet, I'll be sure to invite those to ask the question. So the way that we'll do it is you'll add your question here in the chat, and then I'll call on you if you should choose so. Turn on your camera so we could see you, and feel free to ask your question. So the first one here, let me get us out of pin view. One second. The first question comes from Marone, who's a good friend of mine. Marone, do you mind turning on your camera and asking your question? And you're muted, by the way, Marone.
Sorry, I sometimes don't hold down the space bar, but I got it now. My question is, what are firms in need of? Also, what are the skills you're looking for? I know one of the struggles in getting a job is figuring out, I think for different companies, what they need. And sometimes in the bigger companies, they need you to do something more specific and they need more programs or whatever. But I think in this new age, in this modern age, there's a different kind of need. What are the needs of your specific firms that you are looking for in new hires?
Well, at least for JHP, just to actually take one step in a broader, I think you sort of touched it. It is going to be very specific to the firm that you go and search for. They're going to have certain different demands. At least with JHP, we're always looking for new hires that are starting at the very bottom level, where we love to teach you and train you about our firm and about how to produce within multifamily and urban design and even senior living. So if you come in with initiative and with curiosity, we look for that. We also skill sets, at least what we're looking for. Someone needs to know the basics with Adobe Suite, with Microsoft Suite. It's great if you know Windows and Mac. We're a Windows-based firm. We are transitioning from AutoCAD to ArchiCAD, which is sort of the European version of Revit. And if you're coming in with positive attitude and want to learn, then we're here to teach you. And you can go as high as you want. Started out 6 years ago, came in as a Tech 3, quickly moved into project coordinator, then project manager, and now associate. So you will take yourself as far as you allow yourself to go. If that answers your question, I hope.
It does a little bit. Any our other panelists have anything to add?
I would probably say a similar thing. I mean, we are typically for people coming out of school or somebody with less than a couple years experience, what we're looking for people that can critically think. Usually that level staff, we're allowing them to work on a project team on all phases of the project. And so we want them to have the ability to design and do technical drawings, go out to the field and assist our construction administrators, help with Adobe Suite, with doing some marketing stuff. So we want them to be well-rounded architects. And so just the ability to critically think and take direction, ask questions, absorb it and apply it is really what we're looking for. Usually, I mean, the pros are when we can get somebody that knows Revit very well and knows Adobe Suite very well, but we're not going to turn somebody away because they don't have 5 years of Revit experience as well. Again, somebody that can critically think is more important, and we can teach all the other stuff as they go.
Sam, anything to add?
Yeah, I echo what they both said, and I think versatility is, something that we always look for. Like they mentioned, if you know Photoshop and InDesign, or even more than that, if you know Adobe Premiere, great. If you just at least are familiar with Revit or ArchiCAD, that means, then we can teach you the rest, because we don't by any means expect you to come in fully knowing Revit. And we're going to still end up, teaching you along the way anyway, because every firm and every office is going to have their own standards and way of doing things in Revit, and that's fine. So if you're just familiar with it, then that's always a plus. But again, just being versatile and being willing to work on different things. It's very common for our new graduates to work on a project in Revit with a project team, where they could get asked to help with a PowerPoint presentation that's going to a client that may require some renderings or some Photoshop work, or maybe we're entering a competition or an award submission, and that might require, again, some more modeling, some Photoshop, some graphic work. So we love it when our recent grads and interns are versatile and know kind of a little bit of all of those programs that we've all mentioned, and the willingness to work on all of those things. And we love it when you're excited and ask questions, and want to do those things. And I think I just kind of echo everything they've already mentioned about it.
Okay, great, thanks. If I may, I'll transition to another topical question, and this was asked by Hannah. Do you want to ask your question, Hannah?
Oh, I just wanted to know, like, if there was a general page amount that, like, is not too much, not too little, and maybe portfolio size pages as well, or page sizes for portfolios.
Biggest tip I have, and it was something that was brought up, is more of the trend that I'm seeing is if you have your own website for your portfolio. If you have too big of a size of a portfolio to send through an email, it's probably actually going to be kicked back and we don't actually receive it. That's one thing. And that's somewhat of a trend that I've been seeing. But as for size and pages, it really comes down to your self-editing. Obviously, it shouldn't be 3 pages, but at least, a dozen to 2 dozen pages ranging in your projects really starts to help us look at it. But if it gets a little bit too much more than that, then I get lost and I forget what was on the first page.
I would echo that. I think in my mind, there's, as long as it is representative of you, it cannot be too long. But again, you might in an interview, or maybe even at a job fair, when you're standing there and kind of going through, we may only review 2 or 3 projects that are within your portfolio, and the rest may be looked at either before or after the interview. So it's never a bad thing to have more projects that represent yourself. but just be prepared that if you do have an interview or something like that and you have a real thick portfolio, be prepared to identify either your favorite projects or the things that best represent you, that you can kind of flip to those real quick and identify those, and then allow the rest to kind of stand on its own as representative of what you can bring to that firm.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is again kind of somewhere where you can self-edit, because you don't need to put every project from every semester, I think, into your portfolio. So like they both said, if you be prepared to have kind of 2 or 3 key projects that you want to really walk through in your portfolio, whether at the career fair or in the interview itself, usually that's about all the time we have for is maybe 2 or 3. It is great if you want to have 4 or 5, 6 in your portfolio itself, and then if you still have others that you're really proud of and want to show, then your website or digital portfolio is a great way to still showcase more work that maybe you weren't able to fit into your physical portfolio.
Yeah, you don't want the portfolio to sort of do a tsunami during the interview, because you may only have 30 minutes to an hour with that person before we have to go to a meeting. So show what we need to see. And most of the time we've seen your portfolio and we'll ask, is there one specific thing you would like us to look at? And you need to decide what is that one thing that you want to show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for answering the question. In the interest of time, I think we'll conclude with this final question. And this one's actually coming from me. I heard I mentioned earlier in the discussion, I was wanting to touch on it a bit more. I believe it was Sam who had mentioned it. So if you have anything to add, please feel free to. But the question I wanted to ask is if you could elaborate on the importance of networking, especially now as a student, as it relates to finding jobs, whether it's internships or full-time employment after you graduate. And before you answer, I thought I would share a quick anecdote. So I've been involved with AIAS for pretty much since I got here. I'm at the last year of my graduate studies. So this is my 6th year here at UTA, and I've pretty much been involved with AIAS since the very beginning. And I could tell honestly, I've had 2 architectural internships. Both of them, I acquired them after, being involved in AIAS. The first was just because I believe it was an AIA Fort Worth member who was looking for intern, and that happened to be Rebecca Pallet, who's the incoming president-elect. And because of that, my involvement in AIAS, the president at the time referred me to Rebecca. That's how I got my first internship, and that was great. The second one I got after serving as camp director. I'd been involved, and I had gone to a couple of AIA Dallas meetings, and there I met who was the AIA Dallas president, Richard Miller. He still currently serves on the board, but because I was so involved at the career fair, he was like, "Hey, Isaiah, I recognize you. Why don't you come visit our table?" And that's where I began my internship at Hafer Wysocki. I finished my 2nd year this past summer, and they've asked me to continue to working there whenever I graduate. So that's my personal experience on how networking has helped me to establish these connections. But I wanted to hear from our panelists their thoughts on the importance of networking. And anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I know that we hire a lot of people that are friends of other people that work for us. So just that of asking your studio mates if they had a summer internship and where they work and how they liked it can be very helpful. I know Samantha mentioned it when I was in school looking for a job. My dad had a colleague that was an architect that was working on his office building, and so he became friends with that person because he was very involved in the design of it. And I kind of felt awkward when he said he reached out to him and basically got an interview for me, that I didn't earn this on my own and everything, but I took it as an opportunity to see what that firm was about, get to know that person. And yeah, so I mean, any opportunities like that are very helpful. The get with your studio professors. I know that we, through AIA Fort Worth, Brad Bell is on our board, but he also communicates to professors that reach out to us. So professors may know and have a connection of, hey, reach out to this firm, to this person, and just send them your resume and tell them you got it from me. So there's definitely ways to kind of just get your foot in the door. And again, anybody that recommends anybody to me, whether it's their spouse, their kid, or just somebody they know, I usually take that at least to the point of an interview more than somebody else that just sends an email. It's very helpful to do that. Now, once it gets to the interview, I'm judging it solely on the candidate I'm interviewing. So it's not, you're not, at least at BLK, you're not going to get a job just because you know somebody. It's going to be on your own merits, but you can get that one little bump to get your resume looked at a little more thoroughly, or an interview just by knowing somebody or recommended by somebody.
Yeah, if you know someone at the firm, usually we'll do either a double tap, you'll get an interview with someone that is not that person, so that we make sure that it's not biased at all. But, you know, I'm actually probably, out of the three of the panelists tonight, one of the less networked people. But I started, you know, I'm an introvert at heart, but I started getting into little things, the ARE success teams at the AIAS, and then getting into Bark and Build as well this year has really started getting me out of my shell. And now even doing this panel discussion is getting me out and getting these connections. So we're not telling y'all to like go out to a convention and just start making friends, but at the same time, that may be the thing that you have to do, is just get out there and start mingling, though that's probably not really happening that much right now with COVID. But you never know what connections you may or may not have. A friend of mine knew someone at JHP, and they were just very casual about it. And I finally look up his friend, and he's the vice president of the company. So you never know who you might get in connection with. So work on that. Don't be shy. And also just be you.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned, Anthony, that you lean more towards being introverted, because it's such a great point, because like there are still ways to network that are, you know, of course, like you were saying, extroverts, it just comes a little easier for, and they can go just jump in a crowd. But if you're introverted, there are still ways to network, you know, finding, like you mentioned, the ARE success teams is a great way. Finding just, you know, smaller committee groups, you know, is a great way to still network and still be in a smaller setting. So I love that you pointed that out, because there's definitely ways to do it, no matter which way you are, introverted or extroverted. Isaiah, I also loved your anecdote, because I was very similar in AIAS when I was in school, and it led me to meeting a lot of professionals just from my involvement in things I did with AIAS and Freedom by Design. So you guys should definitely take advantage of that while you are in university. And then I went to AIAS Forum, and I went to Grassroots and a lot of those other conferences. I went to quad conferences. It was called South Quad when I was in school. I'm not sure if it's called something different now. But I also made a lot of connections with other students during AIAS, and I still keep in touch with them. And let me tell you, so I graduated 6 years ago, and it is so cool to go to AIA National Convention and to run into my AIAS like friends from 6 years ago. It sounds silly and kind of corny, but it's awesome, because we live all over the country and went to all these different universities. And you never know, one day when you might be moving to one of their cities, or you might need to partner on a project, and you can reach out to them. So even your studio friends that you might meet in AIAS Forum or conferences, those people are still fantastic connections as well, and we'll be friends and colleagues one day. And then once you get a job, that doesn't mean to stop networking. It's still always a great thing to stay involved, whether it is through AIAs or USGBCs or whatever community organization you might be passionate about. I'm also involved with ACE Mentor, so there's just so many things that you can get involved with. So networking should continue even after you do get a job, because you never know when one day you might want to switch jobs or you're transitioning to a new city or a new role. And those people that you are connected with and have relationships with can come in handy, especially if you're considering wanting a new job. And a lot of the times your involvement with things like AIA can help you get there. So you never know, again, what that networking can become one day. So you got to do it now and also just keep doing it, but find what fits and works best for you and your personality and what you're passionate about. And I see some of my ACE students on the call, so hi to you guys. I did see all of your names, so that's exciting to see you on the call.
Well, thanks for plugging in your ACE students, Sam. I always appreciate that. So I noticed in the chat there was some confusion. We had some promotions sent out to our first year class, and there was some confusion. The 7 p.m. event that you're referring to, that's actually tomorrow, our AIS chill session, which is a great way to make a plug, even though it was a miscommunication, which is taking place tomorrow also from Zoom. So again, I apologize for that. The recording of this, we are going to upload to YouTube, which I'll put in the chat here. It is AIAS at UT Arlington. And you'll get updated when we upload that. If you follow our UTA AIS Instagram and or Facebook, please do that. But to answer the question, I also appreciated that although your first year course, the professor of that course got the time wrong, she's encouraging you to attend these events by giving some extra credit or giving an assignment. So to answer the question, I believe it was what firms are our guests from? So we have Justin Hiles, who's from VLK Architects in Fort Worth. We have Anthony Gallion, who's from JHP Architecture in Dallas. And then Samantha Markham, who is from Stantec Architects in Plano still, right, Sam? Still in Plano? Right. Okay. So I hope that gets you your credit, but certainly, please, if you missed out on the beginning part of the conversation, you won't want to miss it. It'll be on our YouTube channel that's there in the chat. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you again to all of our wonderful guests for sharing their insight on the kind of dreaded portfolio and interviews that are going to be awaiting us here soon. It's very much appreciated, even for myself, who's done this a couple times. It's always refreshing to hear from new perspectives. So thank you all to our guests for joining us this evening. Thank you, Victoria, for doing such a wonderful time or doing a wonderful job moderating. And thank you, everybody here in the audience. We appreciate you joining us here today. But as I said, keep in touch with us on social media. Keep an eye out for our newest upload to YouTube, and check your emails. There should be several now for our AIS chill session coming out with us tomorrow at 7. Relax from studio, and let's try to ease our way into Thanksgiving break. So with that, thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a good evening and stay safe. Thank you again, guests.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Good to see everyone.
No problem.
Thank you, Isaiah and Victoria, for leading this. And again, appreciate everybody attending. It was very fun.
Yeah, thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This was a lot of fun, and it got me out of my shell. So thank you all for helping with that too. So y'all have a wonderful holiday season and be safe.
Thanks, y'all too.